Hello, everybody. Hope you're all having a lovely Monday, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar covering all things IEC with me, Hugo O'Doherty, Director of Partnerships with Moving to Canada, and my amazing colleague, Rebecca Major. Rebecca, say hello to the gang.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.
So this is our sort of second event like this year. We had a great reaction to the first one, and backed by popular demand, we're now getting out there again for another 45 minutes or so to deal with some questions, and then just provide a little overview leading into those questions of what the IEC is, who it's for, how you can apply, and success factors into a successful move to Canada through this program. Both Rebecca and I moved to Canada through the IEC a number of years ago, and now we're both Canadian citizens. I'm from Ireland originally. Rebecca, where are you from?
I'm from the UK. Moved to Canada in 2010, so long time now.
I think I was on the flights just after you. I arrived in January 2011, so we arrived around the same time. And a lot has changed in Canada and around the world since then. The IEC program itself has changed. Canadian immigration has changed. The types of jobs that people do has changed. Popular destinations have changed. So this is a world that's always in flux, and we're here to deal with the 2024 version of IEC, where people move to, how they move, the jobs they take. My colleague Sarah is also sort of on this event in the background. She'll be dropping some links throughout the event for some things that we're going to mention. And no matter which channel you're joining on, you should be able to drop us a comment or ask us a question on the channel that you're joining on. So please feel free to do that. We'll reserve some time at the end to deal with your questions. So we'll get stuck into it. Here's what we'll be talking about. Rebecca, maybe just like run us through these few bullet points here before we get stuck into the actual the meat of it.
Absolutely. So I just want to start by saying, so this is an IEC, so the International Experience Canada webinar. So in order to be eligible, you have to be from a certain number of countries. So if you're not a citizen of those countries, then this webinar is not for you. And my colleague will put the list of countries so you can all have reference now. And if you are from a citizen from a country that's not listed, as I said, this webinar is not for you, but you can go onto the Moving to Canada website and complete our immigration quiz, and that will assess you against about 20 immigration programs and give you the best option for you. So just bear that in mind as we're talking about IEC. You have to be from an eligible country. So in this webinar, we're going to be covering what IEC is, the benefits of the program, some eligibility requirements, what you'll need to apply, the expected processing time. We'll go over some post-application submission documents that you may have to prepare, submit. We're going to spend a little bit of time going over Moving to Canada's website and how you may use it to help you in your relocation to Canada. And then we are going to be answering some of the questions that come through.
Great. I've actually just seen a great one come in from Rachel in the UK, and I just wanted to sort of flag it early because it's got something we're going to cover later. Rachel asks, British citizen here in Canada on a full-time IEC. She's full-time work on an IEC work permit expiring in about a year. Wants to stay in Canada afterwards. How do I transition to PR? So that's something we're going to touch on later for everybody. So Rachel, thanks for the question. It's a great one. What is IEC? It's the International Experience Canada program. There are more than 30 participating countries. Sarah has just dropped in a list of those countries. And there are three main categories: the working holiday, young professionals, and international co-op. I'll just rattle through exactly how each of those, sort of the differences between them. The working holiday is an open work permit, meaning that if you're approved for a working holiday work permit, you can take up pretty much any employment opportunity in Canada, any job in any location, and you can even change jobs after arriving in Canada. The exact parameters of that change depending on the country on your passport. So some work permits are for 12 months and some for 24. Great news is that a lot more countries are eligible for 24-month work permits than 12-month work permits, giving people more opportunities. In contrast, the young professionals and international co-op are closed work permits. You need a job offer to apply. And the good thing there is that demand for those categories can be less than demand for the working holiday. So even though with the working holiday you might get an open work permit, you might not get invited to that program, whereas you might get invited to one of the other two. So if you're eligible for multiple, that's great. Um, there's an age requirement in addition to the participating country requirement. So for most countries, this is only open to people between the ages of 18 and 35. For some countries, it's between 18 and 30. And even if you're from one of the list of countries that Sarah posted earlier and you're older than 35, unfortunately, that means that you won't be able to move to Canada through IEC. And the same principle applies that Rebecca outlined. It doesn't mean you can't move to Canada. There could be another way. Take the quiz on movingtocanada.com and see what options might be available for you. But if you sort of strike gold on, I'm from one of these countries and I'm between 18 and 35 or 18 and 30, depending on the country, then IEC could very well be the way you can move to Canada, and pretty quickly too. That's IEC in a nutshell. Rebecca, I'm wondering if I missed anything on that. What is IEC?
Yeah, no, you covered pretty much everything. So Hugo and I both came through the IEC program 10 plus years ago. And so we obviously see great benefits to participating in this program. Some of the obvious benefits are career prospects. Obviously, you can kind of go to Canada and work for any company almost. Cultural exchange, you get to learn what it's like to live in a foreign country, and personal growth. You're in a country where you have not been brought up, it's all new to you. You might think there's kind of very similarities, but there'll always be a case of kind of learning to adjust to a new culture. One of the biggest benefits, though, to the IEC program is the ability to work in Canada. Finding employment in Canada is one thing. Getting authority to work in Canada is a different thing. IEC program can make that easy for you to work in Canada, gain valuable Canadian work experience. If you don't use that work experience to get permanent residency status, you can surely use it when you go home as international experience. So there's a lot of benefits from participating in the IEC program.
Yeah, absolutely. So eligibility requirements, as I already mentioned, you have to be from one of these countries. So here we got the list of countries. You'll see there's a lot of Europe in there, but also I see Chile, South Korea, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and a bunch of others, Taiwan, and then a lot of heavy hitters from Europe as well. Look, Canada's got other programs for people from around the world. This one just happens to be restricted to these countries. One thing to note is that these are reciprocal agreements. So Canadians have the same opportunity to move to these countries as people from those countries have to move to Canada. So unless there is that reciprocity between the two governments, there's unlikely to be an IEC youth mobility program. So, for example, I'm from Ireland, and people from Canada who are between 18 and 35 can move to Ireland, and similarly, people from Ireland can move to Canada. So it's a strange immigration program in that, because usually immigration programs don't work like that. This one just happens to be on that reciprocal basis. It's pretty cool. Each participating country has its own rules. So the three categories already mentioned: working holiday, young professionals, international co-op. One of these participating countries might have all three of those categories eligible to them, whereas some might only have one or two. So we can look up, it's on the Moving to Canada website. If you create your account and say you're from IEC, or even just explore the website, you'll find which IEC categories are open to people from your country. In terms of its own rules, there are also things to be cognizant of. Some IEC applicants need to be resident in their home country in order to be approved to this program. And I see it all the time. I see people going like, I was rejected and I don't know why. And they only discover that later, that they need to be actually residing in their home country. That only applies to a few countries. For the most part, you can be residing pretty much anywhere in the world and be approved through IEC, but some people need to be residing in their home country. So I think that covers eligibility requirements. If anyone's got any outstanding questions about eligibility requirements, pop them in and we'll address them in the Q&A at the end. So how it works.
So Rebecca, the program works. It's kind of like a two-step program. So the first thing you do is, if you are interested in pursuing this as a means to work in Canada, you have to enter the IEC pool of candidates. So basically you submit your profile to a big pool where all these people sit until they're invited. And what happens is IICC do draws from the pool, and during the draws they will invite people to apply for a work permit. The draws typically happen every week, but as we come to a slower season in IEC, which we'll go into later, you may find that you're waiting a bit longer for draws to happen. They might not be on a weekly occasion. If you are invited to apply, so your profile gets selected, you get a little letter from IRCC, you have 10 days to accept that invitation. From the day you accept that invitation, you have a further 20 days to submit your application for a work permit. So you're looking at in total about 30 days. So it's really important that if you're in the profile, you have everything ready for when you need to apply for a work permit, because you just want to make sure you've got everything. You don't want any surprises. So that's generally how it happens and the timeline of it.
Nice one. And if anyone's got any outstanding questions on how it works, pop a question in. I see a great one here from Jill Cullen before I address this one. Is it true you have to 1 year to enter once the visa is approved? For example, can you enter Canada in 2025 if you get approved this year? In a word, yes, with a caveat, like make sure your passport is eligible, is up to date. If you need to get a new passport, there's sort of a bit of bureaucracy in order to sort of link that to your application, which we won't have time to go into in detail here, but just something to be cognizant of. And yeah, your question was, can you move in 2025? Look, if you get approved, it's March 25th, 2024 today, you'll have until March 2025 to enter Canada if you're approved today. So it's not for the whole of 2025. You've got 12 months after approval to enter Canada.
Yeah. I always
cool.
say, if you're interested.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, can I jump in?
No, go ahead.
I always say, if you're interested in entering the pool or coming through IEC right now, enter the pool, and we'll go into this later. Someone's asked about temporary resident visas and the levels. We're going to go into that in a later slide. But if you're eligible, enter the pool, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. Plans can change. As I said, you have about 1 month to play with when you enter the pool. If you're selected, you have about a month to play with. You have a processing delay of maybe a month, and then you have the flexibility of when to move, which is roughly around before 12 months after you get approval. So if you're interested, don't kind of hold off on applying, because you can always make the dates work, and there's a bit of flexibility there. So absolutely.
Yeah, if you think you might want to arrive before summer 2025, you should be getting in the pool at the moment, you know. So how to increase your chances of being selected. So quick word on how it works. Each IEC category has a quota, the exception being Australia, unlimited quota. Aussies, you're lucky. But for every other participating country, there's a quota per category. And very often these have a limited quota and a lot of demand. I'll give an example. Typically every year, the UK working holiday category has a limited quota, but multiples of that in terms of people who actually want it. So let's say for every one work permit available, there might be 2 or 3 people who want that work permit, right? So, and the invitations are issued randomly. So there's not much you can do to increase your chances of being selected for that category specifically, other than getting in earlier to the pool, thereby exposing yourself to more invitation rounds throughout the season. In addition to that, so Rebecca's already addressed that, apply early. Consider other IEC routes. So young professionals, for example, if you get a job offer in Canada, there's a little bit of work on behalf of the employer. They have to pay a fee in the region of about 200 Canadian dollars. But it's not that onerous on the part of the employer to do this work. They can issue you a job offer and link that to your application, and you can potentially move to Canada through the IEC Young Professionals. Why would you do that? Well, you can come here. It's much easier to get an invitation through that program typically than it is through the working holiday. So if you find that your working holiday pool is oversubscribed, and what I mean by that is that there's more demand for the work permits than there is supply of the work permits, look up to see if there's a young professionals category for your country. And if you can secure a job offer before you move to Canada, you could very well move to Canada through that IEC Young Professionals category, not just get here sooner, but get here at all, and potentially even go through another IEC category later. And that's depending on the country you're coming from, or discover another Canadian immigration post arrival. But that is a sort of an underappreciated way to get here sooner and to increase your chances of being selected through IEC. Those would be the two main ways. Apply early, and by apply, I mean get in the pool, and then consider other IEC categories, including young professional. Rebecca, is there anything else to touch on in terms of increasing your chances?
Not necessarily, no, but I think a lot of people are kind of put off a bit now applying to the IEC program because they've seen that the chances of selection are very low. So I just kind of wanted to spend a little bit of time going over that here. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
that means when the IEC program first opened in January, there was obviously a massive influx of interest, and we saw around 5,000 invitations issued each week. And obviously, they can't keep that momentum going. ISCC had to slow down in invitations, and that's what we're seeing now. So the last draw saw like around 500 people invited. And this is because they have obviously a number of people that they're going to invite over the course of the year. We expect the program to open. It was open in January. It's going to close around October time. So they can't just keep going and issuing all these invitations. But what it means is they're going to issue less invitations each week. So although your chances are still very low, they are still going to be doing draws. So even if you are concerned that it's low, still enter the pool because they will still be doing draws, and it's going to depend on how many people enter the pool right now. So if less people enter the pool than what they projected from now until October, those chances are going to increase. So don't be put off by these kind of updates on ISCC. They're doing it because they need to slow the momentum, and this is expected. They do this every year, so yeah.
Yeah, don't fret. If anything, now's the time to sort of get your act together and get in the pool, knowing that invitations are going to continue probably until the autumn or fall, as they say here in Canada. Typically, they'll run until around October. That's a really good point, Rebecca. There's a question here from Artur, and Artur, I'm guessing your last name is Polish, and I'm going to do you a favor and not try to pronounce it. But I'm going to give us that Borsinski. Artur, maybe drop us a comment to see how right I got that. But the question was around what's the reason that in some cases you have to live in your home country? We don't know. In a word, I just looked it up while Rebecca was elaborating there on the invitations, and IRCC states they give an example. Elsa is a resident of Sweden, but she's temporarily studying in France. She just needs to give us her address in Sweden. That's what IRCC states. Okay, so but France, but literally the government's saying she just needs to give us her address in Sweden. And it says, if you're an Italian citizen, you also need to provide a residence certificate, certificato di residenza. And then there's some other translation requirements, probably something to note. If your documents aren't in English or French, you will need to get those translated, and that's across the board. Close enough, says Arthur, in terms of the last name. But yeah, these are reciprocal agreements, and depending on the particular youth mobility agreement that Canada has with that country, there may or may not be a residency requirement. But as you can see on the government, well, I can see it, you guys can't. But the example here is Elsa is a resident of Sweden, but she's temporarily studying in France. She just needs to give us her address in Sweden. So read into that whatever you want. Yeah.
Yeah, the difference will be some countries actually require you to be like resident for 3 months. So just be if you're from a country that says, oh, you know, you need to reside in that country for 3 months, because sometimes it will they'll say specifically that you have to be there for a certain period of time. So Poland, you'll have to look at the requirements. If the Polish requirements say that you have to live in Poland for 3 months, then the address probably won't be enough. You're going to have to show that you've lived in Poland for 3 months. That's going to be different to the mailing address.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so
What you need to apply. So then when we say what you'll need to apply, this means in reference to if your profile is selected. For you to enter your profile to the IEC pool, you don't really need anything. You just kind of need your passport number and some basic information that you'll have on hand. If you are selected, though, you're going to have to submit your full application. So this is in the 30-day period. And you're going to need your passport, a copy of your passport. Make sure your passport is valid for the duration that you're requesting. You want your CV, stroke resume, a digital photo, police clearances. So the police clearances need to be from every country where you have lived for 6 or more months since the age of 18. The application process, you have to fill out an application form. You will have to provide a medical examination if you wish to work in a certain occupation. So one of the common questions we get is, can I work in any occupation? The answer generally is yes. Some jobs are reserved for Canadian citizens, permanent residents. If you want to work in a job which is kind of restricted, that means you have to do a medical examination. So if you want to do work in childcare, be a teacher, work in healthcare, then you're going to have to do a medical. So you'll be submitting a medical proof of medical examination as part of this application process. When you apply, you will need to pay processing fees. This is going to be $172 for the application. If you're applying under the working holiday, you're going to have to spend another $100 as the open work permit fee. And if you're applying for the co-op or the young professionals, you will have to show that you have paid, or your employer has paid, the employer compliance fee of $230. You will also have to do biometrics. At that point, you'll be paying for your biometrics with the application fee. And that was about $85.
Nice
So it's
one.
best to have those documents ready.
Yeah, no doubt. The police certificates is a funny one because usually in your home country, it can be pretty quick and simple to obtain. But if you've lived in any third countries, for example, I resided in the United States for 10 months or so before I came to it's totally different from getting a
Yeah.
police certificate in Ireland. Ireland, small country, let's just say a more casual bureaucracy than the United States, which was more formal. And to secure the US one took some time. So it's good to know these things in advance. How long might it take to get this document? If you've made, Rebecca, correct me if I'm wrong, okay? But if you've made reasonable efforts to secure the document and can prove that, and you submit that before the deadline, that should be sort of good enough for that purpose. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you can't, for whatever reason, get your police clearances by the due date of your work permit application, you can show proof that you've applied. And that's going to be kind of proof that you've applied online, had a confirmation email, proof that you've sent your application in the mail with a waybill, and you're going to submit that. Then ISCC are going to reach out to you about 2-3 weeks after, requesting that document and giving you another 30 days to provide it. And at that point, you should have it. So it's not the end of the world if you don't have your police clearances, but it's risky, but you will have to make sure that you have proof that you applied.
Cool. Nice one. I saw a great question just come in, and I've just flipped a link to Sarah. So if you're Sarah, hopefully you're able to drop it in the comments. What if you apply and end up renewing your passport while you're in the pool? This is from Lara. IRCC, when we say IRCC, sorry, it's a bit of inside baseball. That's Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada. It's basically the federal government department here that runs this whole show. And yeah, Sarah's just dropped it in here. Here's what to do if you get a new passport after you've applied for IEC. And there's sort of different scenarios there for if your profile's still in the pool, or if you've submitted but have been approved, or if you've been submitted but haven't been approved yet. So Lara, you should be good to go with that link that Sarah just dropped in. Great question, and thanks for submitting it. Okay, processing times, lovely. Relative to other Canadian immigration programs, IEC is extremely quick. We're looking at a month or so, give or take. We've got 3 weeks written here. That really depends on the flow of applications and some other factors, but we're talking weeks here, not months, and definitely not years in terms of a typical processing time. This is great for IEC participants. They can sort of plan in real time for the next step in their life, and that's important, especially within the age range that they have. Once you are invited. Rebecca's already talked about the 10-day and 20-day sort of deadlines that are in front of you. Those are very important. But then once you're submitted and then hopefully approved, that should only take a month or so. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. There's different countries, there's different visa offices, there's different IEC categories. So please don't take this as gospel. But yeah, we're talking about a handful of weeks. And this does not include the time for providing your biometrics. Rebecca, could you touch on that briefly for that sort of caveat that we've written into the deck here?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So biometrics now are needed pretty much any time you apply for any kind of permit to come to Canada. And so what happens is you apply, you submit your full application within the 20-day period. Within 72 hours of applying, you're going to get a letter that says you need to do your biometrics. And you have 30 days from the date of that letter to do your biometrics. And you're going to have to go to a processing office to get those biometrics done. The processing time of 3 weeks only starts when you've done your biometrics. So if you get your letter and then do your biometrics day 30, you're going to have 3 weeks from that time you've done the biometrics. So your time is going to be more like 7 weeks processing. So that's how biometrics work.
Yeah, and you might have to travel some distance. I mean, there might be a biometrics collection point, 10 meters from your home, or you might have to travel to another city or even another country in some cases. This, in addition to the processing time, can just be a bit of a a bit of an inconvenience. But I don't know,
Yeah.
make a trip out of it. Everyone's young and carefree. Stay overnight, enjoy yourself. Spend the night out on the town in the city you've never been to before, potentially, and take biometrics as an opportunity as well as a challenge. So yeah, it's just they only introduced that a few years ago. When I came through IC, biometrics were not a
Yep.
factor. Rebecca, I believe that was the same for you.
Yep.
I can't pinpoint from memory exactly when they were introduced, but it was a few years ago, and it's definitely become top of mind for IC participants since. For those reasons. We'll move along from processing times. Okay, great. Post application submission.
Yes, this is if you have submitted your application. So you've entered the pool, you've received an invitation, you have submitted your application for a work permit, you have then got to do your biometrics. We've just discussed that. So you wait the 3 weeks for processing, and you get your approval. So that approval is a port of entry letter. It's kind of just a one-page letter that says you've been approved for a work permit. Go to the border, the Canadian border, and you will get a work permit. So when you arrive in Canada, there's certain things that you must show in order to get that work permit. So you're going to need to show proof of financial support. That means you've got at least 2,500 Canadian or equivalent Canadian in a foreign currency in your bank account. You have that port of entry letter. You must have health insurance. So this is one of the biggest documents people kind of fail at. The health insurance must be for the duration of your work permit. So if you want a 2-year work permit, you must show health insurance coverage for 2 years. And that's really very important that you do that. Having a health insurance that is for 1 year and automatically renews is not good enough. It must clearly say that you have health insurance for the duration and the dates that you're hoping to work in Canada. And if you've come through the Young Professionals or Co-op program, you must have a copy of your job offer. So they're the main documents. You may also be asked for a return ticket or proof that you have additional funds to pay for a return ticket. So that would be in addition to what's listed there. So if you're not landing with a return ticket, add $1,000, $2,000 for a return ticket as well, and your proof of financial support.
Can I just touch on health insurance for a second before we move along? Not only is it required that if you want the 2-year work permit, you need to have 2 years of insurance, but we get so many questions on this. People ask, can I use the health insurance policy I have from my home country or a country that's not Canada? That's a hard no. No. Can I use one connected to my credit card? No. Can I use one from my employer in Canada and I've lined up a job once has a group insurance policy? Is that good enough? No. I heard that Canada has universal healthcare delivered through governments. Is that not good enough? No. Those are all hard no. Like, there are specific requirements for the IEC health insurance, including but not limited to repatriation in the event of serious injury or worse. Okay. The above mentioned types of insurance typically would not cover that eventuality. Canada requires this of IEC participants. There are private insurers around the world who have specific policies that cover this sort of program. Some of them even like tailor it to IEC specifically. And we've got a great webpage. It's one of the most popular web pages on our website, movingtocanada.com, covering IEC health insurance. And no matter where you're coming to Canada from in the world, we link out to at least two recommended providers, one of which, Best Quote Travel Insurance, has a policy. It's Best Quote, sort of an aggregator of different organizations that can service this purpose. But one of those policies, if or when you get public health insurance coverage, there's sort of a rebate, or if you leave Canada earlier, there's sort of a rebate as well. The exact percentage sort of can change, but there are things you can do to limit your risk after Canada, but also limit the risk of not being approved to enter the country in the first place, which is what you're all trying to do. Do not skimp on this. Get it right. Get the right insurance. I think Sarah's just dropped a link. Have a look at that, and bookmark it or return to it when the time comes to book insurance, because it's really important to get this part right. Every year, people are denied not just getting on a plane, but at the border. They're denied a work permit. They land in Canada and they're denied a work permit, or they get a nasty surprise. They thought, oh, I'll buy 6 months up front because it's more affordable, and then I'll buy more insurance later. And then guess what? Their work permits for 6 months, not 24 months. Don't make that
Yeah.
mistake.
I'm also going to add to this one, Hugo. If you get approved for 24 months, say,
Yeah.
and how long you can stay in Canada will depend on your country agreement. Some have 12, some have 24, some have 36 months. Say you get approved for 24 months, but you say, you know what, I only want to work for 12 months, so I'm only going to get health insurance for 12 months. This happens. This is why I'm bringing it up. So people get a work permit for 24 months and they're like, oh, hang on, I love it here. Like, I want to carry on working. I can work for another 12 months. No, you can't. You will not be able to extend your work permit in the event that you love it and you underestimated how great Canada was. You will not be able to extend your work permit if it was limited in duration because of health insurance. So do yourself a favor, do your future self a favor, and get the full insurance that you want, that you're entitled to for the work permit. Because the last thing you want to do is want to stay but not be able to stay.
Yeah, massive. Like, this country is really cool. Like, whether it's for adventure or career opportunity, or just because you made new friends or met a potential life partner, these are all reasons that might make you want to stay. You think you're coming for 6 months, 10 months, and you're like, oh, actually, there's way more opportunity here, whether it's professional, personal, adventure, romantic, social, a combination of any of those things. You might want to stay longer than you think. So get that full 2 year of health insurance up front and give yourself as much flexibility in your life as you possibly can. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Jobs. So we're not just coming to Canada to play. We're also coming to, make a bit of money. It also helps when you've got a great team and a great culture to fit into. At Moving to Canada, we have had some great success at placing IEC participants with some great employers. I just want to highlight two today that were really, really. I don't know if the people out there can see.
Enthusiastic about these.
Future where balloons and thumbs up come out of nowhere. So there's two organizations I want to highlight today. Young Guns Container Crew. I'll touch on them first. This is a container unloader job in 4 cities across Canada: Toronto, Vancouver, and Calgary, which many of you may have heard of, and Cornwall, which I'd expect many of you might not have. This is Cornwall, Canada, not Cornwall, that bit of the UK that sticks out into the Irish Sea. They're paying up to $28 an hour plus team bonus incentives, and they're always looking for new talent. One of their a couple of the other sort of highlights of them is you don't need like an extremely high level of education. If you do, that's great, but it's not required. and they help people stay in Canada. So if you showcase your like hard work ethic, there are opportunities to be promoted, and they do and continually get approved for what's called an LMIA, labor market impact assessment. They have a track record of keeping people in Canada through the LMIA process. Roughly, this is like employer sponsorship, where the employer can tell the government, hey, like, we have a critical need for this particular type of worker. We haven't been able to find as many Canadians as we need. Therefore, please let us keep this worker in Canada. They have a track record of leveraging that pathway to help people stay in Canada. So if you want to come for 12 months, 24 months, and then bounce out of Canada, Young Guns might be an option for you. But if you want to stay and really grow your career here, that also might be an option. I think Sarah's going to drop in a link for Young Guns, and then Skyscapes. We just started sort of working with these guys recently. They're tremendous. And they're in the Toronto area. They pay up to $32 an hour on starting, plus team bonus incentives. And they, in the image you can see here, a beautiful deck that they made. This is a real Skyscapes deck. And they are looking for people to help make decks like this across the Toronto area. They are currently interviewing IEC applicants, and there's a quick form on our website, movingtocanada.com. It takes about a minute to fill out. You can throw your hat in the ring there and see how you go with Skyscapes. So Young Guns, they're sort of more nationwide, Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Cornwall. And Skyscapes, they are just in the Toronto area. But they're both brilliant job opportunities, and we have had great feedback from our IEC community on how these opportunities help them enjoy their time in Canada. So we've also got a Moving to Canada jobs board, so have a look at that too. Great. Rebecca.
Yeah, so I just wanted to take a second to go over the Moving to Canada account. So if anyone has been on the Moving to Canada website, you will see that we have a free account for our community. And so basically this will be, for all you ICers, this should be your go-to. So if you need help organizing, if you need resources, if you're looking for some special offers, this should be your go-to place. And I just wanted to take a second to have, to just show you kind of what you can expect. The checklist is our main feature. This is going to kind of send you through step by step exactly what you need to do. And the idea is that it's been created by people that have done IEC. So we know kind of the pitfalls, we know what to look out for. The classic example, like check your passport has sufficient eligibility remaining. You might not think standing out that you have to plan your passport expiry dates. We're telling you do. And so we have a number of different checklist items for you to just like walk through to make sure that you're doing everything you need to be doing. If you do receive a port of entry letter, so you've been approved, we're going to tell you exactly what you need to do to land in Canada, the steps you need to take. Again, kind of taking the guesswork out of it for you. We've done the work for you. You don't have to. You just have to follow our checklist. For those of you who are not IEC eligible, so if you're from a country that is not IEC, at the beginning of the this webinar, I told you to go complete our quiz. You can also, by all means, create an account on Moving to Canada, and you're going to see here the quiz. So you will just create an account and go to immigration quiz, and then you answer all the questions, and we're going to tell you the best options for you. So whether you're IEC or non-IEC, Moving to Canada account is going to help you in your journey to Canada.
Something for everyone.
Exactly.
Thanks for that, Rebecca. Yeah, like I went for coffee with a new arrival to Montreal a couple of months ago who'd used the checklist. So, and she was coming from Dublin, my hometown, and not only did she make it to Canada having used this checklist, but she'd signed up for a phone plan with our recommended phone provider. She got home internet with our recommended internet provider, because we are able to work with brands that can offer our community a specific discount that they can't get elsewhere. So she was very appreciative of the fact that we're throwing this all up for free. Not only do we help people move to Canada with confidence, we also do help them do it affordably. And it's very gratifying work, especially when you can meet someone in person who's just arrived in Canada and they tell you how great the checklist was. So I'd encourage any prospective IEC participant to go and create a Moving to Canada account. Tell us you're moving through IEC. Not only will we generate a checklist, but we'll put you in the checklist at the moment in your journey. So even if you're already in the pool, or even if you've already been approved, we'll slip you straight into the checklist exactly where you need to be. If you haven't done anything yet, we'll put you in at the very start.
Yeah, no, it's a really powerful tool to use to help you in your planning and your execution to come to Canada. So it takes the guesswork out of everything for you.
Perfect.
Okay,
Mhm.
question time. Hugo,
My
before I
favorite.
get on to questions, I just want to hold off for a second. I want to go over the temporary resident levels that were introduced. Chance to update our presentation because they were introduced last week. But basically, some of you may have heard that the government announced last week that they're going to put a cap on temporary residents. So work permit holders will fall under this category. And so people are going to be concerned, what does that mean for you? 2024, the quota for IEC has already been announced. It's around 90,000. So we're likely not going to see an effect for 2024. 2025, 2026, we may see lower numbers. So that's just something to bear in mind. We don't have exact information yet on what that means for the quotas, but it does mean that they'll likely be affected a little bit. They're hoping to reduce the temporary resident numbers by 19%, which will reflect 1.2% of the Canadian population. So we could see an effect of this, but this year, chances are it's going to stay the same. If you're looking for 2025, that's when you could start being affected. Yeah, that's basically it. If you're in Canada on an IEC and you're looking to extend your work permit, there may also be changes to how you can do that or the ease of which you can do that, because Hugo mentioned labour market impact assessments. Those things are going to be a little bit harder to get for some employers. So if you're concerned about how you're going to stay in Canada, start planning now. If you're employed, talk to your employer, reach out to your employer, come up with a game plan of how you're going to stay in Canada.
Yeah.
If you can, if you are from a country that allows repeat participation, that still might be the best option for you. But just know your options would be the best place for you to be in right now.
Yeah, and when you say know your options, knowing your options today and knowing your options a few months from now are different things. So the best way, honestly, is when you're creating your Moving to Canada account, check that little box that says sign up for the newsletter, and we will keep you informed reliably. We've won awards for this stuff. We're an award-winning website. We've been doing it for 12-ish years now. We're good at this. We're good at keeping our community informed, particularly the IEC community. Last week, they announced that there's going to be a reduction in temporary residents in Canada. That's inclusive of temporary work permit holders, but also students and a couple of other channels. They've also said that there's going to be some announcements in May and implementation later in the year, in the autumn. So those are things that you really want to know about, especially if you don't intend to apply in 2024 and are looking at 2025. In addition to signing up for our newsletter, get in the IEC pool as soon as possible, so that even if you want to move next year, you can get your approval this year and actually pull the trigger on physically landing in Canada, potentially many months into the future. Being prepared is the best way.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's go on to your favorite time, Hugo. Let's go to question time. We had some questions at the very beginning. I'm going to start from the top for those people that were asking questions at the very beginning. Someone asked about how do I transition to PR? So when it comes to permanent residence, PR, permanent residence, when it comes to permanent residency options in Canada, it really depends on the individual. So you may qualify for federal programs, you may qualify for provincial programs, you may have a Canadian partner that can sponsor you. Your options really do depend on your specific information. What I would recommend is the immigration quiz on the Moving to Canada website. That will assess you against many different immigration programs to see which PR option would be best for you. Your permit is due to expire in March 2025, so I think now is a great time to start looking into your PR options. You've still got a bit of time left on your work permit, but that time will go fast, so complete the immigration quiz and to see which kind of option would be the best one for you would be your starting point. In the event that you don't get your permanent residency through in time, you will have to extend your work permit. There may be various options in which you can do that. Again, it depends on your specific circumstances. So yes, start transitioning now to PR. And if you don't get your PR in time, you're going to have to extend your work permit.
Yeah, or get a different type of work permit completely.
Yep.
So extend your temporary stay in Canada. If you want to sit down and talk to someone about this, Rebecca, on our website, we can help. We aim to give as much away free as possible, but some people have sticky situations. They might have even legal issues or something. We do work with a small network of immigration consultants who we know and trust, and we've been working with for years. And you'll find that on our website under the Our Partners tab. You'll see the list of immigration consultants there. So if people want to spend an hour with someone and actually discuss their issue of how to stay in Canada longer term, they can do the quiz. And yes, they very much should do the quiz as well as potentially sitting down with that person.
Especially when it comes to when it comes to PR, you don't want to kind of take any chances. You want to make sure you've got all your options. You know exactly what you need to do. Like planning in this kind of scenario is key.
Yeah, exactly. Like I sometimes I see in social media groups or something, they're like, someone was being like, just do it this way. Like I did this 18 months ago or 2 years ago. Like just do what I did. There's my thumb again. Just do what I did and you'll be fine. But like, and they're watching it going like, no, sit down and talk to someone about this who really is up to speed, knows what's happened 5 minutes ago, not just 5 days ago. There are people out there who follow this stuff, including us, but also our network of immigration consultants. And just in terms of consultants and lawyers, make sure that whoever you're meeting, if you are meeting someone, is a genuine Canadian immigration consultant or lawyer practicing in Canada in good standing. Anyone else who's asking for money to consult with you or represent you, they're not allowed to do that. And not only are they not allowed to do that, they're possibly not acting in your best interests. So make sure that if you're working with someone, that they are a Canadian immigration consultant or a lawyer licensed to practice in Canada.
Absolutely. We've got about 5 minutes left, Hugo. So we'll. You want to pick a question? You want me to take it?
Yeah, we'll do a few. Okay, there's some good ones. Sky Blackledge. Is it advisable to start considering our PR options at the very start of our IC? I'd say yes. I'd even say before you land in Canada on IC, kind of at least have a cursory knowledge of how you might stay in the event that you'd want to do so. One of the big things you can do on your IC is secure skilled work. So getting sort of casual work is great, but skilled work is even better because then you're starting to accrue points towards PR if you're moving through an economic program ultimately, and sit a language test and genuinely like maximize your points in that. Lots of people from our part of the world, Rebecca, Australia, other places where English is the main language, they waltz into their IELTS or CELPIP test. Those are the two of the tests that you can take for English, thinking that they're going to get full marks, and they fail to do so because they didn't appreciate how tricky the exam can be. So take your language test, but prepare for it. Okay, a couple of other questions.
Jonas,
La, la, la,
I've
la,
got
la, la, la.
here from Jonas that you're going to love, Hugo. How can I see available jobs in the hidden market and apply from abroad? What do you think, Hugo? That question.
Yeah, I also heard this one on a bus recently, where I actually heard two newcomers going like, "Where is the hidden jobs market? Like, where is it? Where's the link?" There is no link. It's hidden. It's the kind of job market that you hear about incrementally through conversations and exposure to people who are well connected. It's the kind of thing where you go into a room, either a physical room or say a digital one, like a social media group of some description, and you start talking to relative strangers and showcasing value about like what you can bring to the table, and then ultimately trying to make good on that value by recouping some value. Sorry, there's a outside the room here. There's a dog that's trying to get into the room that I've booked, so forgive me.
This is to another question we have about network. How do we find network events? And we're talking about this hidden market. How do I find all these network events? How do I know where to go? to find this hidden place where everyone
Yeah.
finds jobs?
Yeah, in any employer that you admire that is operating in Canada, start following them on LinkedIn. Find key employees um, on LinkedIn who work in the kinds of positions that you want or that might be your direct report ultimately. Start following them, connect with them, and don't just ask, give. All right, so give up front in terms of your ability to help them in their life, not just their ability to help you in yours. That's kind of it, like as a sort of starting point. But then also, you got to be comfortable talking about yourself and about your goals to people that you've just met without being a complete bore as well. And that's a very tough thing to do. Um, Generally speaking, to uncover hidden job opportunities. So these are job opportunities that are not necessarily posted on, say, Indeed, which would be one of the main jobs boards operating in Canada. You will have to talk to people, whether that's talking in person over a video call like this, over a traditional phone call, or over, say, a couple of messages exchanged on LinkedIn, hopefully leading to an email exchange before long, and trying to follow and connect with the people that you want to work with or for. Um, that's kind of it in a nutshell. And then someone will, when there's an open job opportunity, they'll know that you exist and they'll come to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just one sort of piece of advice. Anyway, I think we've got like a couple of more minutes, Rebecca. We can take a few more
Yeah.
questions. Thanks for the question, Jonas. Appreciate it.
And can you apply for jobs through moving to Canada? Yes, you can. We do have a jobs board. So you'll see Young Guns, you'll see Skyscrapes there, you'll see a few other jobs. So the best thing to do is have a Moving to Canada account and you'll be directed to the jobs board. So a few people have asked about extending their 2-year visa, whether they have are entitled to 2 years or 3 years. The length of stay that you're entitled to under IEC will really depend on the country that you're from. So you might get, say, a 12-month permit and you have to renew it. You have to apply again, and it really depends on where you're from. So you're going to have to go and check your eligibility per country. We can't go into all 30 right now, but just check. Go onto ICC website, IEC, check what the requirements are for the country of citizenship. A classic example is Irish and UK nationals. Sometimes people will come on Irish and then also have British citizenship, so apply through British, that's fine. But it really depends on your citizenships. Someone has asked a great question. Sky also asked about language tests and whether they consider things like dyslexia. Yes, they do. You just have to reach out to them. Some may be better than others at accommodating needs. So reach out to the testing centre to see what kind of support they offer. They might give you more time, things like that. And stumbling blocks. Rachel asked, what are some common stumbling blocks to avoid besides not having insurance sorted before you land? So what would you say is another massive hurdle that people don't realize? This is an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, the
Health
insurance example is good.
top one.
The insurance example is good, but it's more bureaucratic. Like I'd offer one more, which is not having a resume that really showcases your value and achievements.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you're putting in a resume saying like, I know how to do this, this, and this. Let's say you're a software developer, and you're like, I know Python, I know HTML, I know CSS. Hire me. No, Canadian employers want to see like, I know this thing and I identified this problem so far in my career and I took this action and this was the result of my action. And this was the incremental benefit for the organization. It's kind of scary for some people to sort of when you kind of get the formula down, you can create a document that's probably 2 pages long that has this like list of value and achievements, and then you're going to start getting interviews. You're going to start winning interviews if you can showcase your achievements. I think some people are like, definitely in Ireland, we're much more reticent or deferential, and we don't want to sort of big ourselves up. I know in Britain, you're maybe a bit stiff upper lip as well or something, and you don't want to sort of scream about how great you are. I don't know. But in
Yeah.
Canada or North America, it's much more like, I am so great.
It's,
I'm tremendous. And that's something
yeah.
that, like, honestly, people struggle with. And if you can get that process down pre-arrival, there's nothing stopping you, and have a great resume to showcase. You're going to start winning not just more interviews, but frankly, better interviews for better jobs.
Yeah. Um,
And
someone
sorry,
asked,
Rebecca, we've got a Canadian resume template in the account. Like, create
correct.
your account, get the template, adapt it for your needs, and you'll start winning interviews.
Yeah. I guess that was,
Yeah.
it's surprising. So even me, I'm from the UK. People always ask me, why did you move to Canada? I moved to
Yeah.
Canada because Canada's great. But I didn't appreciate the difference. Like, I didn't appreciate the difference between a resume for British employers and a resume for Canadian employers. Um, there's differences of what they expect. So even if you think you've got it, just check.
Yeah.
Take 10 minutes, have a look at our resume guide to make sure that you're kind of ticking all the boxes. On the topic of jobs, someone's asked whether you need a job to enter the pool. If you are entering the pool under the working holiday program, then you will not need a job. If you are hoping to come through the young professionals or the co-op program, then you will need a job. So most people to enter the IEC pool will not need a job. Again, if you find yourself sitting in the IEC pool, the working holiday pool for some time, then maybe you want to start looking for jobs when you're abroad to go through one of those other options that Hugo went through when he told about increasing your chances. But generally, no, you do not need a job to enter the working holiday program pool.
Related to that, there's a good question from Miss Tananastic. I work in a marketing related job in Germany, apply via the young professionals. So kind of related to what you just talked about. How employers must prefer local applicants. I mean, the great thing about the IEC young professionals is that the employer doesn't necessarily have to promote or that job or even interview Canadian candidates before they can hire you. Again, these are reciprocal programs. So Canadians have the same opportunity in Germany that Germans have in Canada, right? So there is sort of a net benefit to Canada and Canadians. And therefore, this is not just purely a transactional thing where they're only getting the German marketing person in because there's no Canadian. Um, so when you write Ms. Fantastic, employers must prefer local applicants. Employers prefer people who can get the job done well. And if that's
Mm-hmm.
you, then the IC Young Professionals is a great opportunity because the employer doesn't necessarily have to offer that job to Canadians first. So that sort of speaks volumes about the value of the IC Young Professionals.
And then if we're going into kind of what kind of jobs you can accept, um, I mentioned before there's some restrictions. You can accept a permanent job offer, but obviously you can only work in Canada whilst you're approved. So you may have a permanent job offer, but if you've only got a work permit for 12 months, you can only work for 12 months. So on
Yeah,
that as well,
yeah, I saw a
just
question in from Monkage about that. That was really
yeah.
helpful. We take one more for the road, Rebecca.
Yes.
Um, cool. Let me just see. What's the best time to move to Canada? This is a great one to finish on.
No,
Like, it's March now in Montreal. Like, Canada's huge. I don't know if people, like, I still can't wrap my head around it. It's gigantic. Um, uh, my colleagues in Vancouver live about as far away from me here as my family back in Dublin. So it's huge. What's the best time to come? It depends where you're moving to, what you're into, what the climate's like, all this stuff. So I moved in January. It was really, 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 really cold. If you're into that and you like snow sports, that's perfect. But if you don't, probably spring or summer would be your best bet.
no. Honestly, I think though any time of year is a great time of year in Canada, but you just have to embrace. Like if you're coming in the winter, get outside, go snowshoeing, go skiing, enjoy the after ski sessions. Like you just have to kind of make the most of it. Um, I came in July when I first moved to Canada, and I wasn't expecting the heat. So um, every year I try and pick my favorite season, and I love all the seasons of Canada. That's a genuine answer. I can't wait for spring, and when spring's over, I won't be able to wait for summer. So
Note that it's March 25th today, and Rebecca just said, I can't wait for spring. So
It's a bit cold.
if you're in Vancouver, it's spring today, but not if you're in
If
Montreal.
you're in Montreal, it's definitely not.
Thanks for the questions, everybody. Thanks for being such a great community. It's a pleasure for both of us and the whole Moving to Canada team to serve you every day. And look, right, any questions we didn't address, we'll definitely take account of and make sure that our content speaks to those questions and answers very quickly.
Perfect. Thank you everyone for joining us, and good luck with your IEC journey.